fluorescent lights of the bus station hummed, casting a sickly yellow glow that seemed to warp the edges of everything. I clutched my worn backpack, the rough canvas, a small comfort against the rising tide of unease. It was late, much later than I usually ventured out, and a gnawing feeling of being watched had settled in my gut the moment I'd stepped out of the relative safety of the main concourse. A flicker of movement in my peripheral vision made me jump. A man. He was standing by a grimy pillar, not quite looking at me, but his stillness was more unnerving than any direct stare. His face was obscured by the shadow of a low-brimmed hat, but I could sense his gaze, sharp and unblinking. I quickened my pace, my sensible walking shoes suddenly feeling too loud on the linoleum. I was heading for the deserted platform, the last bus of the night, a beacon in the dimness. As I rounded a corner, he was there again, a few yards ahead, blocking my path. He didn't move, just stood there, a silhouette against the flickering emergency lights. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Excuse me," I managed, my voice thinner than I'd intended. "Could I just get past?" He didn't reply. Instead, he slowly turned his head, and even in the gloom, I could see his eyes. They weren't human eyes. They were too large, too dark, and they seemed to hold an ancient, hungry emptiness. A tremor ran through me, cold and deep. Then he began to move, not towards me, but in a slow, deliberate circle. His movements were jerky, unnatural, like a marionette, whose strings were being pulled by a clumsy puppeteer. As he spun, the shadows seemed to cling to him, deepening his outline, making him appear impossibly tall. A low, guttural sound, like a dry cough mixed with a hiss, emanated from him. I backed away, fumbling for my phone, my fingers slick with sweat. I needed to call someone, anyone, but my hands were shaking too violently to even unlock the screen. The man continued his strange, disturbing dance, his head tilting at odd angles, his gaze, those bottomless pits, fixed somewhere past me, as if seeing something I couldn't. He was getting closer now, not with a direct approach, but with his unsettling, spiraling movements. The air around him grew heavy, thick with a cloying scent, like decaying flowers and something metallic. I could feel the hairs on my arms standing on end. It was as if the very air was recoiling from him. He stopped his circling and finally faced me directly. The hat still obscured most of his features, but I could see the unnatural curve of his smile, a rictus of sharp, uneven teeth. He extended a hand, long, unnaturally pale fingers splayed. They weren't reaching for me to help, but to pull, to claim. The sound that escaped his lips was a dry rasp, like leaves skittering across pavement. "It is time." A primal scream clawed its way up my throat. I turned and ran, not towards the bus, but back into the labyrinthine corridors of the station. The strange, distorted echoes of his rasping voice chasing after me, promising a darkness I knew I had to escape. The sickly yellow light seemed to dim further, as if the very essence of the place was draining away, leaving only the encroaching, suffocating shadow.